Western philosophy or science in it will be rejected completely by the university. Can you expand on that?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Yes, the gentleman has 15 PhD students, Iranian, who are are studying philosophy and are in the field of humanities. And you know, if there is going to be a purge in the Iranian universities, what's going to happen to these people? You know, this has been very vague and unclear issue. You know, we have been, during the trial, one of the accusations was that Western ideas have infiltrated in the universities, and rather than Islamic science and Islamic philosophy and Islamic values being taught, we have the Iranian universities have concentrated on teaching Western philosophy and also the latest developments in political science in the United States and in the West only more. And there is a suggestion that one should rewrite the curriculum at the universities. And in the last 4 years, ever since President Ahmadinejad came to power, a number of reformist professors have been either dismissed or given early retirement. And these were people who were teaching Western sciences. So we don't know yet. We just have to wait and see. Universities start in a couple of weeks, and we just have to see whether they would manage to change their curricula or whether they will keep the universities closed for 6 months. We don't know yet. It's all very vague and still in the mad. We hear Ayatollah Khamenei talking about it in the Friday prayer, the prosecutor talking about it in the trial, but we have not yet heard from the chancellor of these various universities. Just have to wait and see.
Please.
Hi, I'm Diane Berger. During the Bush administration, I think we Americans were led to believe that Ahmadinejad was somewhat psychologically unstable, and there were subtle and not so subtle hints about that. And I wondered what your attitude, what your impression is of his intellectual capability and his psychological stability. And also, what is the relationship between Ahmadinejad and his government and the religious leaders in Iran? Who's the real power, Ahmadinejad and his government or Ayatollah Khomeini?
Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader, is the ultimate decision maker when it comes to foreign policy issues. He appoints the Joint Chief of Staff. He appoints the head of the radio and national television. He appoints the members of the 6 members of the Guardian Council. So he really is the ultimate decision maker. But the office of the presidency, forget about who is the president, but the office of the presidency wields a lot of power. I mean, just bring it. And Ahmadinejad has been very good at traveling in the provinces and dispersing money. And so I believe that he is popular among a certain class or type of Iranian people. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the votes were really counted that he would have gotten maybe 45% of the vote. I mean, because he is, I mean, the last 4 years he had hardly spent time in Tehran. He has been traveling, and there was the oil reserve fund money, which he used to disperse in the provinces, wherever he went, he gave money to build this, that, and so on. So therefore, and, and he's trying to assert his power. For example, despite the clerical opposition, he nominated 3 women to his cabinet, and 2 were rejected by Parliament, and 1 was approved. So, while he got, he was told by the cleric in Qom, he was told by the hardliners in Parliament to, not to appoint any women. But he went along and did that. And then one of them was approved. So I think he also, and the way he speaks resonates with the leader. I just cannot believe that he does not have the backing of Ayatollah Khamenei when he talks about the Holocaust, for example. Because he could have stopped him. He did not. So I think the way he speaks, the way this populist presidency that he is leading, his friendship with Chavez, his friendship with Ortega, all these, people, it resonates with the leader, and he's supporting him. It's very difficult for me really to say whether he's a balanced or not balanced person. I mean, it's hard to say. We have seen worse people, So.
Please.
Yeah, sort of a follow-up. In the power struggle...
Please identify yourself.
No, sorry, no sense. In the power struggle in Iran, how strong are the so-called reformers like Rafsanjani? And there was even talk in the red papers that there might be some members of the Guardian Council who are fairly dissatisfied with the present situation and might even want to get another supreme leader. And can the people, shouting from the rooftops, have any influence on the reformers to actually overcome the conservatives?
I think the intelligence ministry would be very happy if the protest movement was just from the rooftops, and at night people would just, shout, "God is great." They would have been very happy with that. But and because they were concerned about really tens of thousands of people into the street, they came down so viciously and had this clampdown. The reformist movement, is still there. They arrested some of their leaders, but they have not touched yet former President Khatami, Karoubi, Mousavi, and a number of them. They haven't touched Rafsanjani, but I get a sense that they are limiting more and more the scope of their activities. They closed the newspaper of Mr. Karoubi, they closed his internet site, and then, of course, now I just read today that Mousavi and Karoubi are putting out all their news in English, and they have, access to an English internet website where they put their news. Rafsanjani was supposed to speak on Friday. It's they call the Quds Day, the Jerusalem Day, where they are expecting millions of people coming out in the street. But today it was announced that Rafsanjani is not going to be the speaker at that event, and it's going to be a very hardline member of the Guardian Council whose name is Khatami, and also President Ahmadinejad is going to be the second speaker. So I get a sense that slowly they are trying to limit and narrow down the scope of the activities of the reformists. But something has happened in Iran after these elections, and that is that the government has lost its credibility and legitimacy, and you can't continue with business as usual. It won't, there is so many awful things have happened to go back to the pre-election days. So we haven't seen the end of it. For example, I think the Quds Day, the Jerusalem Day, is on Saturday, and so or on Sunday. So they closed down. They announced a general holiday on Saturday and on Monday, so that people don't have to go out, don't have to go to their offices on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And usually in Iran, as soon as you have a 3-day holiday, people go to the sea, people leave town. So, they were concerned that there might be people coming out into the streets and demonstrating, so they announced a general 4-day holiday. So we will see what will happen on Sunday, because Mousavi announced that he's going to take part in those demonstrations. But the demonstrations are aimed at Israel and occupying powers. So we'll see.
Please, in the very back in the center.
Doctor, I wonder, given my name is Betsy Cleveland, I wonder, given your experience, do you have plans to return?
I'm sure, given the current situation, they would have loved to have the mastermind of the Velvet Revolution there and willing to send me one-way first-class ticket. No, the answer in short is that no, not now, but maybe one day, sure. I haven't given up on Iran. Yeah.
Please.
My name is Madeline, actually. You mentioned at my voice or my honey?
Yeah, louder. No, you
You
can
mentioned at the beginning that when the movement started, or post June 12th, that the message was, "Where is my vote?" And you sort of left it hanging as to what the message might be now. And we look at what the reformists are doing, and I distinguish them from the people, because I don't necessarily think that their intentions or their goals are the same. But in terms of the reformist leaders, Mousavi, Kadri, Alexander, what, in your opinion, if you've been able to figure anything out, because I haven't, is their goal at this stage? It doesn't necessarily seem to me that it's just about the prisoner rate and abuse, or that at this point it's really even about recounting votes or anything of that nature. Do you think that they're trying to sort of move in a direction of power sharing with the government? If if Khalani said to Rafsanjani and Kadri right now, let's sit down, let's talk about this, let's negotiate, what do you think they would present?
Immediately after the elections, I thought for a while that because in the last 30 years we have always more or less seen Iran being run by consensus, group of the cleric or the National Security Council in Iran or the government. They always got together, they gave, they took, they gave, they took, and finally they came to consensus. But I think that this time I don't see there is a possibility of consensus. I mean, and if the leader, if they wanted to reach out to the reformists, he could have allowed either a recount of the elections or had annulled the elections and had another election, a repeat of the election. So I don't think we will see a power sharing. The Revolutionary Guard is now taking over more and more, and Mr. Ahmadinejad has formed his new government. He has appointed his vice presidents. They are all hardliners, some with experience, others with no experience whatsoever. So I don't see any power sharing. I would be even surprised that if the opposition, if the reformist movement would continue even this little room of, they will continue to give them a bit room for their maneuver. No, unfortunately, no. I'm not hopeful.
Please.
Not now.
Towards the back, yes.
Yes, Howard, Pastor Bird from Baltimore. Doctor, I just had a question, because I don't know much about Iran and its power. A couple on the latest question. I was listening to NPR about 3 weeks ago. I don't know who the guest was, but I caught my attention because he said that when you're dealing with Iran, that really there are two families totally in control, the Khameneis and the Rafsanjanis. And in the end, that's the whole story. My question is, are they opposed to each other? Are they together? Is that true? I don't know.
I don't think they are just two families, and that at first, you know, after the elections, I think somebody alluded to the Godfather and said they are, I think, the Corleone and the other family, I've forgotten, whatever. So they said this is the way it is, and at the end, you know, they'll come to some sort of a consensus and so on. I don't think so. I think that we have passed that stage. The Rafsanjani family is a very strong family, but also very corrupt. And so therefore, I think one of the reasons why Ayatollah Rafsanjani, who is the head of the Expediency Council, is keeping a low profile these days, is that precisely he knows that, you know, with these people, they might just go after the members of his family. Until before the elections, he and Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader, saw eye to eye, consulted with each other, but I don't think this is the case now, because now you see that there is a rift among the clergy, the high-ranking cleric. There is even, you know, a rift among the leaders of the Revolutionary Guards. We hear stories that some of them have resigned because they don't believe that the role of the Revolutionary Guard is being involved in political affairs. But this is hearsay. You know, in the clerical case, we have had 3 or 4 very prominent, established Ayatollahs coming out and criticizing the regime very strongly about the atrocities that they were committed. But then yesterday, they arrested the 3 grandsons of Ayatollah Montazeri, who has been very critical of the regime, sons of another Ayatollah. So since they can't touch them, they go after their children, their offsprings. So I just don't believe that these two families at this stage are sort of loving with each other, or lovey-dovey. I don't think so.
Please, in the center.
My name is Carol Diggs. I would like to say first that I attribute to your courage and perseverance for being here this evening. And then you talked a lot about what you see, translating for us what's happening in Iran. I wonder from your perspective what you would want to say to Americans about our attitudes and
What would I say to Americans?
You've been talking about the situation in Iran. Yeah. But from your perspective, you also probably look at the American public or political, how we see Iran, how we deal with it, the assumptions we make. Are the assumptions good, bad, or do we have our attitudes helpful towards trying to get some sort of resolution in that question?
I think the hostage crisis has left its mark on the American psyche. We and the American public. Sorry? Okay, sorry. I said the hostage crisis has left its mark on the American public. I mean, and they can't shake it, they can't forget it. Also, Iran has been demonized for the last 30 years. So in the United States. And it's going to be very difficult, I think, to sell the idea of engagement with Iran to the American public. But if it is explained to the American public, I think that the Iranians are willing to give up their nuclear program and really stick to what they have been saying, because they always argue that this is for the Iranian nuclear program is for peaceful purposes and it's not to have the bomb. If they can convince the American public that we are talking to the Iranians precisely because of that, because we need their cooperation in Afghanistan. We need their cooperation in Iraq. We need them. We need their cooperation when it comes eventually to the Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement. So then I think the American public will accept that.
Yes, up in the corner there.
Andrew Yaffe. Wondering if you could describe a little bit more the tactics that you use to stay positive while you were in prison. To explain more the tactics you use to get through the day and get to the next day. And also tell us a little bit about, I guess, when inside your interrogators, talking a little bit perhaps about the guards, whether there were any sympathetic figures, whether they were there just to make money or whether they were truly as well.
Surviving in solitary confinement. I think after I got over the initial shock and I accepted that this is going to be my home for a while, and I had to accept to be blindfolded when taken to interrogation, and it's an amazing feeling when you are blindfolded, because you not only feel disoriented, but you feel humiliated, and you hear voices, but you can't place them. You know, you are dependent on someone to take you by your hand and move you up the stairs, down the stairs, and so on. But I also noticed that very soon, after a few days of being blindfolded, that I can move that slightly up and just at least follow the footsteps of the person who was walking ahead of me and was taking me to interrogation. And I'm a very disciplined person by nature, so I decided that in order not to succumb to despair and depression, and to accept the fact that I was in that room sleeping on a blanket without a pillow and being cooped in there really 22 hours a day, unless I was taken for interrogation, I decided I need to do something with my time. And I knew that thinking about my family and thinking about home would just break me down completely, and I just didn't want this to happen to me. So I developed an exercise program, as simple as that. You know, I would walk for hours in my cell. I would do Pilates exercise. I had 2 bottles of water I used as a dumbbell. And then I would always repeat the interrogation of the day, and that took really quite a while, because I would go for interrogation sometimes late into the night, sometimes 8 hours, 9 hours. And then I would repeat it to myself. I would say, he asked this, I answered that, and the tactic is that they go over and over the same question in a period of weeks and months, so to catch your discrepancies and say, that's what you said 3 months ago, but now you are saying this. So I kept on repeating it to myself and also trying to remember my own answer and thinking that, okay, if today we covered this part in our interrogation, this means that tomorrow we are going to move to something else. So I would develop strategies for that, and it didn't necessarily happen the way I had planned it, but I was always busy doing that. Also, I wrote 2 books in my mind, you know, because I didn't want to put anything on paper, because when I was taken for interrogation, I knew the women guard were told to come and pick up every scrap of paper that they could find in the room. So I wrote in my mind a biography of my paternal grandmother. Mohsen knows her and knew her, and a children's story for my grandchildren, you know. So I kept myself busy doing that, and also I had access to books. at first, there was just a copy of the Quran in my cell, and I decided it's a wonderful opportunity to read the Quran a couple of times, cover to cover, educate myself. And then I asked whether, one of the women guards told me that you can ask your interrogator for books. So I asked him whether I can have access to books from home. He said, no, but you can have access to books from the library, but you can't go and choose them. You have to tell your interrogator. So you have to tell your women guard. So one of the women guard decided she's going to be in charge of getting books for me. So she used to go and bring piles of books on Shiism. So I educated myself on Shiism too. So that was, once that finished, I said, can you get me some novels? And oddly enough, some of you may have heard of this Greek author, Nikos Kazantzakis, and he's a leftist author. And he wrote The Passion of Christ, among other his books. Somebody must have loved him, because all his books were translated in Persian and were in the prison library. So I started reading Kazantzakis in Persian. I had read him in English. And then halfway through my interrogation, Kian Tajbakhsh, the other inmate who lived in Iran, had access to his books from home. So one day I saw my interrogator walking with a pile of English books into the interrogation room, and I said, are these for me? And he said, no, they are Kian's, but take them. I said, excuse me? He said, yeah, take them. He can wait. I said, oh, no, you take it. These are his books. I knew if I was jittery, it was more. I said, take it for him, but then ask him to lend me a couple of books. So the next day, he sent me 2 books. So that was the beginning of of reading books in English. But I had rationed my reading to only 2 hours every night, because I had developed an eye problem and they had denied my eye medicine, so I did not have access to my medicine. Plus the light were on in the cell 24 hours a day. And so I had to ration myself. There were these books sitting there, and I didn't touch them. And the last book I was reading when I was freed was Our Man in Havana. So, so that was... And the guards you asked about, they did their job, I was very polite with them. They were very polite to me. I looked at them. I said, these are employees who are told to do this, and they are doing their job.
Please.
Stephen Davis, you spoke of the Bush administration's feeding of the paranoia. What happens to the dynamic nuclear weapons issue, knock off the center stage? Does that advance the cause of moderation?
I don't think that the nuclear issue is just going to drop off the center. I truly don't believe so, because the Iranians will insist on enrichment on Iranian soil, but they might agree to enrichment under strict supervision of the International Atomic Agency. So if that happened, and if they are really honest with the IAEA, then probably the sanctions would be lifted, because the main contentious issue is that. And of course, then they can go back to the Iranian people. I mean, the current Iranian administration, Mr. Ahmadinejad, and his ministers can go and say, well, We were the one who finally established relation with the United States on our terms, not on their terms. And this might lead to a moderation. We don't know. These are so, it's really speculating, because I get a sense that these negotiations are going to drag out for quite some time.
Let me ask one last question myself. If you had a chance to advise Secretary Clinton and President Obama about just what to do, how much engagement to try to develop with the Iranian government, what would you suggest at this point?
You took away from me the chance of advising Secretary Clinton. I was invited to have dinner with her tonight with a group of other Iran specialists. So
I apologize.
No, I immediately said, our commitment, nothing. I enjoyed this much more. But no, seriously, I don't think it is for us. I'm serious. I don't think it's for us people in think tanks, in the academia, to advise the United States government what to do or what not to do, because we are not privy to all the information they have, But we can analyze for them. We can tell them this is the way we see the situation. But I personally don't think that it is for us to tell the President Obama, Secretary Clinton, Undersecretary Burns, or so on, what to do or not to do. But we can be good analysts and explain the way we see the situation developing in Israel.
Okay. Well, this has been an extraordinary evening. We've not only had a wonderful speaker with a tour d'horizon, we have had a lot of very good questions from you, the audience. Before we conclude and move into the light reception outside, I'd like to mention the 4 programs we have coming up in the next month. First, for young professionals, a World Quest contest, a test of one's knowledge of international trivia. For those who haven't tried it, it's great fun and very challenging. On Thursday, October 1st, we have another of our author series events with David Bosco talking about the UN Security Council. On October 5th, we have a very special event, a reception at the house, the residence of the German ambassador on Foxhall Road. And this is a rare opportunity, and I hope many of you take advantage of it. And finally, on October 19th, Marshall Goldman, one of the great scholars on Russia, is going to be speaking about Putin, power, and the new Russia. And that promises to be quite something. At this point, please join me in thanking Hala Esfandiari for an absolutely marvelous talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And her book with the correct title is available outside the door, and we have a light reception.
Thank you.